Hi, how are you doing, guys? Welcome to the preview show for Villarreal versus Arsenal. Not Villarreal versus Arsenal. Arsenal versus Villarreal. Yes, second leg. And I have with me Kabir. Hi, Kabir. After a long time, glad to have
Yeah,
you back.
yeah, it's been a while. Great to be back, Vipul. Great to be back.
Yeah. So again, we are stuck at home, and we need to do this the video this way. So no worries. We are still in contact, and let's move ahead. So a lot of things have happened once you were away, but then you're back. Let's we'll not catch up everything in this video, but I should suggest we are doing the preview for the second leg for Arsenal versus Villarreal in the semi-final of the Europa League. So actually, I would like to discuss the game, the first leg which happened,
Yeah,
and since we didn't do a post-match show for that, so let's discuss that a bit. So Arsenal traveled to Valencia and played Villarreal over there, and the score was 2-1. The score suggests that okay, Arsenal have got an away goal, but then if you ask me, we didn't play that well, and we were lucky enough to get that away goal. What is your take on that?
yeah. So for me, I think the team didn't start the way we wanted them to start away. I mean, the last game that we played Europa away was Slavia Prague, and it was an absolute rout. Arsenal played some of the best football they played this season in an away game, and it's been that way. Our home form has actually been quite poor through the entire season. So I was extremely glad that it was an away game first off. But then the boys just didn't play. It was quite shocking that first half. I mean, a lot of people were grumbling about the setup in which Arteta had set up the team, but I mean, according to me, I think we still had enough. There was enough players, enough dynamism on that in that squad to be able to do something in that first half. Problem was too many players looked like the switch was off. It was not just one or two players; it was close to about 7 or 8 players that looked like their switch was off, and that's a big problem. You can't have that. Being a team like ours that's just trying to get into a groove, we're not not 8 on the bounce, 9 on the bounce. We're trying to work for every victory, so you can't have players coast through it. There's no way. Uh, Individually, I thought Odegaard was poor for the first time in an Arsenal jersey. He looked extremely poor, but also the fact that he had just come back from injury. But again, these are calls that the technical team is making that, according to them, make sense. They're looking at the players during training. They're looking at everything. So in that aspect, I was quite surprised. While I think everyone was jumping that Leno made a great save to avoid the third goal, I think Leno himself over the last 10 games has had, he's not in form at all. Not the way we want him to be. And I think you can see it in him. There's a bit of, oh man, I'm close to making a mistake at any given point in time. So that's not a
Yeah,
great thing. But
you are saying
overall, I
this.
think the boys, I mean, they played well to get a 2-1 at the end. I think in one way we should be thankful Unai Emery was the manager at the other end because, I mean, to take off Alcázar at halftime immediately showed us a way back into the game. I mean, to be very honest, they with the three up front, they pressured us. We were always, while we were trying to get a foot in the game, there was always one side that we might concede another one. But
Yeah,
when he took off Alcázar, I was like, okay, this is just us now trying to push and get something out of this. And to be fair, we were unlucky. I mean, Oba, if this game had happened after Oba had scored over the weekend, I think that chance Oba would have put at the back of the net.
of course.
There's a big difference in that, but it was unfortunate. But I think a 2-1, I think I take that right now because I think we can actually finally put a very good home performance in on Thursday night.
Yeah, and home performance is not. It's a rarity this season, basically, because we are not performing that great at home. Coming back to your point with Leno, there is a rumor flying around today that Leno wants out after the end of the season, and I was quite surprised with that since he's the one who's making mistakes. If he was performing the way he used to perform, not during this season as well, and he was saying this, then I would have said, okay, chalo, he wants to move on, and it's not his fault that the team is leaking goals or anything. But then in the last 10 matches, it's his fault. Some of the goals were directly, he was involved directly into those goals by making a mistake. So you can take, for example, the Everton game. And how I, I don't get it basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So
a very uncharacteristic mistake from a goalkeeper like him. Like, I mean, you don't expect that. But it's not the mistake that has caused me concern. It's the fact that you can see a lack of confidence. And I mean, he's a very, very proud German keeper. Like, you can see it when he walks onto the pitch. And now that presence seems to have diminished a little bit. And I'm a bit worried because of that. Because tomorrow, imagine there's a point where we're looking at when Luis played against Newcastle, we looked the best Arsenal team that we have this season. And if we don't have him there, it's the fact that because we can't play the ball out from the back, from the centre back particularly, it keeps going back to Leno so much more. And his distribution has not been on point since Arteta came. Let's be honest, he's working on it. Rob Holding has improved immensely in the distribution side of his game for sure since Arteta has come. But I think that's the side where Leno knows that there are certain limitations to his game. And I feel the reason why these rumors have come that he wants out and stuff like that is because I think it is the fact that he sees this is the way we're going to play. It's not going to be any other way. We are going to use the keeper as a distributor factor in the game, whether be it short or long or diagonally 30, 40 yards chipped. And again, distribution as soon as we get the ball. I mean, Edison showed in the Champions League yesterday how important it is to release the ball like from the goalkeeper. I mean, they created their goal through that. That ball to Zinchenko was
yeah,
fantastic. And it's not
Ederson,
something that Leno can't do because you're looking at distribution to half line.
yeah, he's basically the best ball playing goalkeeper for
Yeah.
me.
So ideally, I think, I mean, obviously, it's a bit far to say our next keeper has got to be exactly like Edison because that's a lot of work that's gone into a player like that. But I think if we can find or if we can tune Leno, I'm not for one to say, yeah, let's just ship players off. I do believe that players deserve their chance, and I think Leno has proved to be a very good shot stopper. So there's no doubt about that. It's just that we can work on these things. So yeah.
Yeah, the third goal he saved was very crucial. Now we are in the tie, and let's move on to the game Thursday night. So we do have an away goal, and we basically have to win without letting them score a goal. So even if we win 1-0, we are through. So what do you think of the game? I mean, there is one position I would like to just address is our midfield because for me, Villarreal is not a pacey team, and it looked like a pacey team on that day since we were getting dominated in the midfield because there was no Xhaka in there. Xhaka had to play left back, so we have players who can chip in that position, and I want Xhaka in the midfield, but that's the thing. Arteta is very reluctant to play Saka or Cedric on in the left. Uh, yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, see, again, for me, the thing is you can't put Saka there. I'm sorry. I'm not for the fact that you put one of our most exciting prospects as our as a left back. While he can aid a lot, I agree. He can be part of the play so much more. You can add him on that side, all of that. I still think he's way larger a goal threat than most of the other attacking midfielders that we have. So we have to play him in midfield. For me, the problem is Cedric can't cut it as a left back. We've tried it, we've seen it in the Premier League. Uh, uh, it hasn't worked, so maybe not. But in this situation, we've been lucky enough right now. I think the last press con, there was a lot of sort of excitement on the fact that, and there have been some training pictures released that KT is back in training. So most probably KT will be back on the pitch. If KT is back, then left back is sorted. If not, I'm with you on the fact that maybe we look at Cedric there, but then we give Cedric a singular duty that he keeps. That's all he has to do. He keeps that the one man with speed. Just stick to him, man mark him. Everything else works around it. You do the same thing Xhaka was doing with Ceballos, where Xhaka pushes more to the left hand side, covers up for that gap if Cedric's going to play man to man on Chukwueze. I think the only way you can play Cedric there is that he plays man to man to that guy. Otherwise, it just doesn't work,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
so you just mentioned him, and he's one of the danger players from their team, and he is basically the danger player. So yeah, apart from that, I would like to have your team. What do you think Arteta will go with? Let's
So the thing
start.
is,
Uh,
I mean, I don't know how many of you all noticed it, but again, the game against Newcastle. So this is something Chambers did when he was at Fulham as well. When he played holding midfield, he actually distributed the ball a fair bit. And the game when Luis came off, Chambers was given the same role through the centre back. So if Luis is not available, I would play. Now the only problem is Arteta is very sort of poignant on the fact he wants a left-footed centre back to play, has to play. So in that situation, I would play Pablo Mari and I would play Chambers because I think Chambers can emulate what Luis is able to do. I would have the only situation with that is then you have to play Hector because Holding can't play right back. So you play Hector Bellerin right back. You would play Cedric Suarez left back in case KT is not fit. You would play Cedric Suarez there. Then you would play. I would play Thomas Partey and El Neni. I think El Neni had a fantastic game against Newcastle. I would play. So you would play. I would play three of them. So I would play two. I would play El Neni, Xhaka next to each other, and I would put Thomas Partey in front. So you've got three there, and I've got three left up front. So I've got Emil Smith Rowe, I've got Saka, and I've got Aubameyang to play. So what I would do is that I would rotate Odegaard when we needed to, because see the thing is what Emery is definitely going to do is he's going to try and nick a goal. There's nothing else he's going to do. So the thing is,
yeah,
if we've noticed when Thomas Partey has been sort of has shown us glimpses of what he's able to do, is when he's received the ball on half turn and in two touches release the ball. So if
yeah,
we play him as the furthest forward midfielder, he would end up doing that because I don't think he'll have that much time on the ball to take 2-3 steps, go in there, and that's where we've seen him lose the ball a lot more this season. So I would put him there because if you've seen a couple of games ago, the ball he gave to Laka, a few other times he's actually laid in Aubameyang extremely quickly through.
even in the last leg, he just it was his ball. Then Aubameyang just
To
take
Oba,
on the
yeah,
shoot.
and you saw the position that he was at. He was the
Yeah,
furthest forward in the midfield. So I
yeah,
would take that chance now because there's obviously the motive that if nothing's working in the first 45, you can obviously throw in Odegaard in. There's no problem. We can always add another player. But I think to start
so
off with, I think this would be a great way to go.
3-3, flat 4-3-3.
Yeah, I would go a 4-3-3. Yeah, it would be a 4-2-1-3. Basically, that's how it would go. Yeah.
So without the ball 4-3-3 and
Yeah.
with the ball 4-2-1-3.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, so I'll go a bit different. I'll stick to what Arteta is doing with the formation. So in goal, obviously Leno. So I'm
Yeah.
going to
Sorry.
play Cedric, Cedric on the left and Hector on the right. Bellerin had a good game against Newcastle, so I'll not move him from there. I'll go with the same centre backs, Pablo Mari and Chambers. I am with you on that. Chambers has this distribution is better at distribution than Rob Holding, but then I have a sneaky feeling that Arteta will go with Rob Holding since the partnership of Pablo Mari and Holding
Yeah, it's good.
is
Good
what.
call.
So that's a bit dicey, but I personally will go with Chambers. So in the midfield, I'll go with Thomas Partey and Granit Xhaka, which is the best midfield pairing we've got. I'll keep El Neni just in case to manage the game. If we are a goal up or we are more than a goal up, so I'll just keep him to manage the game. So in the middle, obviously Odegaard played on the weekend and it wasn't that great again. So I'll just take him out of the side and put in Emil Smith Rowe in the middle. On the left, I'll go with Martinelli. On the right, I'll go with Saka. And the middle, I'll go with Aubameyang. So Aubameyang just scored on the weekend, and he'll be high on confidence, and Martinelli assisted and was the man of the match against Newcastle. So he wouldn't want to be on the bench for this one. And we do want that tenacity up front with Oba being. And one thing you noticed about Aubameyang, he was getting involved in the game, like what
Yeah.
Lacazette used to do. I mean, the defenders of Newcastle were not that physical with him, but he was at least trying to come short and get involved in the gameplay. So that is what I need to see more and more. So this is my lineup, and yeah, let's go to the score line. What do you think will be the
All I
what do you
want.
think? Who will play in the final? Obviously, United are already through. It's next to impossible for Roma to make a comeback.
Yeah.
They need to 6-0. I don't know how what they need to win.
I think they need a 4-0. If they do that, Roma are through. So,
So
so I mean, Forza
United are
Roma.
there.
But yeah.
Yeah. So Arsenal is in the final for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're strong enough. I think we'd be able to pull that off. I think we will see United in the final in Poland. I think it'll be a great game to be set up because I genuinely believe that we have enough firepower to ensure that we get past Villarreal in this leg.
You know the interesting fact about the final is they are, I think, going to allow 4,000 fans
Yeah,
in this section, and Poland has a huge fan base of Arsenal, so it's
yeah,
going to be like an game for us, and it will be something new since we haven't seen fans. I think we had one Europa League game against, I think it was Molde,
yeah.
so
They
there
had
were fans,
fans. Yeah, they had fans. Molde had fans. Yes.
and Slavia Prague, I think, the away leg.
No, Slavia Prague had fans outside. They didn't have it in the ground.
Kind of.
I think they had fans outside the ground. Yeah,
So that kind of feeling is a rare thing during this season,
yeah,
and we like to have fans back, especially if we are playing in a neutral venue and we have a lot of Arsenal fans over there. So it will give
yeah,
us a big boost. So any fan, I'll do with any fan now, whether it's a single fan or thousands of fans. We need to be there. All right. So Arsenal is basically in the final, so no need to do the prediction for me. We need to win this to get into the final.
yeah,
So yeah. So another thing I wanted to ask you is not the on-field thing, but the off-field thing which is happening with our
yeah,
club. And yeah, so there have been a lot of protests in the past week or so with the Cronkies, and the fans want them out. So I have to be honest with you. We are sitting here in India and we can't do much. But then I follow a lot of podcasts and channels in the UK, and I asked them what can I do to just make my voice heard. So they are like just keep updated and keep. They know that I have my own show, so just keep on talking about it and make your noise heard, basically. So what do you think about the process?
yeah. So of course, I mean, I think I'm definitely one with the AST, which is the Arsenal Supporters Trust. I mean, I don't believe that the Kroenkes are the ones to take us forward. I think while Josh made the attempt of coming to the fans forum and answering some questions, he didn't look like he was actually answering any of the questions. It looked like he had a blank piece of paper that said answer this for every question that comes in. It was sort of a very repetitive based answer that he was giving.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think the AST supporters, I mean, the people in the meeting raised some great points in terms of that. And we've been, actually, to be fair, I think Arsenal have been the only club, whatever said and done, a lot of people can hoot and jump, say that Liverpool are the most supported club, Manchester United most popular club in the world. I don't see any of their extremely rich fans come up and say, I want to buy the club. We have one in the form of Daniel Elk, the Spotify owner. I mean, whatever said and done, it still takes something else. Like a lot of people have not, and I'm very surprised a lot of people haven't said it. Yes, I do understand that Manchester United are on a valuation that's way higher than ours. I mean, I do understand in terms of the marketing side of it, but I mean, it still doesn't stop someone from saying that. Listen, I would like publicly, I would like to try and take a chance at buying the club. We have a fan who's ready to do that, and I think that shows the fact that and the Arsenal fans actually really want to make some change. While I do not and I will never condone violence in terms of what Manchester United fans did to enter their stadium. I do
Yeah,
understand I do understand their frustration, but there's a way to do it. I'm sorry. There's like a lot of people in the UK applauded it, saying it's the
I
best
heard.
way. They were able to stop a match from happening. They got the Glazers' attention. That's not the way to do it. You still hurt someone in the process of doing it. That's not the right way, according to me. I do understand that they wanted to get on to. They wanted to ensure that the owners know what's happening. But there's a way to do it. Stop the team bus from entering the building. Do what Chelsea did. They got a lot more attention on something as safe as that compared to actually injuring some people and entering the stadium. There were some pictures of people running around with the United corner flag post. I'm like, at the end of the day, there's a way to do it. So back to our club in terms of I think what Daniel Elk can do. A lot of people have said, listen, look at his mode of business. It's he might be a different version of a very shrewd businessman and all of that. Fair enough. He can be whatever. At this point, we need change. And if he is open to listening to adding a supporter's view in running the main team, he's open to it. He's having conversations even now. Just yesterday, from what I understand, he had a conversation with the AST again. They publicly put out that podcast again. It's fantastic. So this is what I'm saying. This is an owner or a person who has the money, has the means, who's still open to saying, listen, I want to know what you guys want in your team. And I think that's what's important. And it's not just what we want in our team, it's the fact that what image does our team put out there. I think more than anything, it was the fact that Arsenal fans knew we did not deserve to be in the top echelons of European football, playing Bayern Munich every weekend because we're not ready. We're not there. We don't deserve to be there. We want to earn our right. That has always been the Arsenal way. I mean, it's only been the fact that we will deserve it. We deserved the undefeated season because we played like that. We deserved the three Premier Leagues under Wenger. We deserved the 14 FA Cups because we played that way. Nothing else. We don't deserve it any other way. So for us, it is extremely important that we have an owner that understands what the club stands for, inclusion being the most important. Arsenal is one of the clubs that I think one of the front runners in the fact that it believes that all fans are equal, and I think that's the greatest one of our greatest strengths as a fan club. Because I remember, in fact, I wrote to the AST guys and I said, listen, I've been following you guys for the longest time, but you guys are doing some great work there now. What can I do? And they're like, listen, you're an Arsenal fan, wherever you are in the world, you are part of the Supporters Trust. Here's the sign up sheet. Just sign up, and you're one of us. And I was like, it feels so great to be part of something like that. There's no difference. They're like, listen, this is what's going on in the UK. They're giving you that information. They're not saying, oh, you're sitting far away, you don't know what's happening. They're giving you the information so you understand what is going on. And I think that is where the club stands its ground. That's where the fans want to be. We want to be transparent. We want to be competitive. We want to be Arsenal again. I think the biggest thing to come out of this is that the Kroenkes have lost the image of Arsenal to their own fans. And I think that's what we want back. We want our club back. We want the fact that we want players that will compete. I know it's not only down to the ownership, it's also down to man management in between this, that. But it's all a reflection of what comes from the top. So today, if you don't see Josh Kroenke, Stan Kroenke in the stands every given day of the week, or I'm not asking that they need to be there, but every match day you need to be there. You need to Stan. I don't think Stan has seen a game in a few years. It's a joke.
For me, it's like if I met Stan somewhere and just ask him what is our best 11. I'm not sure he's going to answer that. He doesn't even know who's playing where, which position, and what.
Yeah.
Hopefully, he knows who our manager is.
Yeah.
But he cannot name our best 11 or whatever the 11 which started in the previous game, the latest
Oh,
game.
for sure, for
So
sure. See, the thing
that
is,
shows.
I
Yeah,
think it
he's
was very clear when when the Americans came, and
Ask
I shouldn't,
what I want.
yeah,
Yeah.
I shouldn't say Americans because there've been some good American owners as well. But in terms of the fact that they have franchise sports outside, they don't understand the history behind a franchise. All of their sports franchises have been 1970s, 1980s. I mean, come on, that's when PSG was. I think PSG had a longer history, but I think when PSG came into to frontline, it was 1970s, which is nothing compared to the English sport. I'm not saying that French football is any worse off, nothing like that. I'm just saying in terms of just history, the
Yes.
fact that we started in 1886. I mean, do these guys even know that? Like at the end of the day, do you know the reason why we're in North London?
All right. So you've made your point heard. I've made my point heard, and ASC is always there to listen to us. And now the new owner, who I'm not saying new owner, but then he's at least trying to put down a bid which Kroenke will not. It's not easy to just reject because it's a lot of
Yeah.
money. So they bought the club for 1.1 billion or something. They are getting close to a billion in profit. So it's not like they have invested a billion into the club and they are not getting anything. So we basically are going down that line now since Daniel Ek is in the picture. So before this, it was like, okay, if Kroenke is going to sell, who's going to buy? Now we do have a buyer, and yeah, so he's pretty much an Arsenal fan, and he has bought three legends with him: Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, and Patrick Vieira. Thierry Henry even admitted it on the Monday Night Football. So
Yeah.
I believe in the legends. I don't know how Daniel Ek is, what kind of man he is. I just know he has a lot of money, he can do this. But then I believe in those three. So if they are on the board of Arsenal, we will surely get back the Arsenal DNA and the winning mentality which we need on the pitch. We desperately need. So these
And
three
I
guys,
think he's been extremely smart with the picks that he's got. Because if you actually
yeah,
look at Dennis Bergkamp in the last few years has been head of football at Ajax. So, I mean, this is someone who knows the internal runnings of a football club already. Henry's had a couple of jobs. Patrick Vieira's had a couple of jobs as coach and head coach and manager. So they understand the workings of a club. These are not just ex-players saying, "Oh, you know what? We want to just step in and be your face for this entire bid takeover." No, they actually understand the day-to-day runnings of clubs. Yes, and the fact that Henry's been with a national team also, so he understands the predicament of what players would go through. He understands all of that, and this is not just from a player's point of view. They understand it from a club's point of view. Structurally, what needs to be done, how it needs to be done. So I think it's been hopefully at least they'll put a bid in. I don't know if it's going to happen. I mean, I had WhatsApped you
so
about
the report
this.
is that there is going to be a bid this weekend. So hopefully, let me get this straight, guys. This takeover thing is not going to happen overnight.
Yeah.
It's a long road, but it's a positive road, and we would like to just be a part of it. And once, even if the Kroenke rejects the first bid, Daniel Ek said in his interview, he's going to go for the second bid, for the third bid. So that it's all about buying and selling. So previously we didn't have a buyer, now we have a buyer. So
No,
which
so
is
the
great.
interesting part is Vipul. That's what I wanted to actually bring to you. So I know you follow the Ornstein and Chapman show on the Athletic. A couple of, I think last week they had one about valuations of clubs, and they had the guy who created the Football Manager, the game. He's actually now involved in a couple of clubs that have been, used. He's been used as a medium to help, buy clubs. West Brom were one of them, in fact. Southampton were the other, where he helped people invest in the club. So at the end of the show, they were joking and they were like, "Oh, you know what? If you had to pick the one club that's the hardest one to sell right now, or the hardest one to value right now, which one would it be?" And shockingly enough, he picked the mighty Arsenal. And he said, "I think the hardest one to sell right now would be the Arsenal because of everything that's going on in the club, the location of the club, the history of the club, the owners themselves, everything." And just a week later, we get to know that there's a there's an Arsenal fan ready to throw some cash down. So I mean, again, interesting times. Great to be. Hopefully, I mean, we don't know what will happen, but even if he's allowed to be partially involved in the club, if they don't even allow the takeover, if he does take a small stake in the club, it's a start, because then it's the fact that the Kroenkes understand that, listen, this guy is coming with an advisory team. If he's got 20% of Arsenal at every board meeting, we have to listen to him. We can't not listen to him. So I think if it's not a full takeover in the initial bit, I do definitely think Daniel Ek will take a percentage of the club. I think it will start with that, because I think they will keep trying to get more money out of it. That's how the Kroenkes are. They've always been like that, extremely business minded in their franchise.
Yeah. So they were also part owners, and then a couple of years back they became the full owner.
Yeah.
So that's how I see this going. Him buying a stake and then eventually taking over once the Broncos are out. So being positive is what I do in life. So
Yeah.
hopefully this also happens as early as possible. But in the past deals in the Premier League, we have seen that it's not that easy. I mean, just look at the team which we played last week, Newcastle. They are trying to sell. The owner was trying to. The owner was not going to sell for the past 10 years, but then eventually decided, okay, we'll sell, and the deal, any which way, fell apart last season.
Yeah.
These things can happen, but yeah, let's be positive. Listen, Kabir, thank you for coming onto the show again. Although
Always a pleasure, Vipul.
we're discussing this, but any which ways, hopefully when we do the preview show next time, we'll be in another final. Yes,
Yeah.
a lot of most of us have a lot of final days,
Yeah.
unlike other clubs. And yeah, thank you for coming again onto the show. See you in the next show.
Yeah.
Bye
Stay
bye.
safe, Vipul. Cheers. Bye.
Bye.